James Harden, the James Harden story. The NBA and especially the Brooklyn Nets have enjoyed the brilliance and incredible gameplay of the bearded one for as long as anyone could remember. He has established himself as one of the most prolific scholars in the NBA and has been considered the NBA's best shooting guard. But before he got to where he is today, he had to pass some hurdles and make some really tough decisions that could have wrecked his entire career if he hadn't chosen wisely. In this video, we'll be talking about how this Compton kid grew to become one of the best players the world has ever seen. Not many people have considered his biography, but trust me, it's a fascinating story. But before we continue, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button on your screen to become a member of this amazing sports family. Without further ado, let's dive right into the video. James Edward Harden Jr. was born on August 26, 1989 in Los Angeles, California to James Harden Sr., who was in the U.S. Navy at that time, and Monjo Wills, who worked with the AT&T in Pasadena as an administrator. However, Harden Jr. didn't get to see his father much because he spent most of Harden's childhood in jail due to his drug issues. Thus, Monjo was left to raise her only son alone and did everything in her power to keep him from following his father's footsteps. Harden still dislikes his father to this day and even refuses to use Jr. in his name, just so that he doesn't get associated with his father. Aside from being the baby of the house and the youngest son, Monjo was very devoted to her son because of what happened before his birth. After giving birth to Harden's two sisters, Monjo suffered several miscarriages before having Harden. You can imagine how much she cherishes him. Harden grew up in Compton's dangerous streets, which had a reputation for being one of the most violent communities. There was a lot of gang violence and drive-by shootings that endangered literally everybody in the community, both young and old. As of 2010, Compton had the 8th highest crime rate in the United States, according to the FBI, with a higher incidence of gun violence than most communities. It definitely was a scary place to raise a little boy. Thankfully, his mother's efforts paid off, and Harden stayed off the streets as much as he could. To keep Harden and his half-brother Keely off the streets, Monjo tried to get them involved in sports as much as possible. While Keely played football and was the star quarterback of his school team, Harden had to settle for a less physical sport because he was asthmatic and couldn't keep up with the rigors. He started playing baseball and was excellent at the sport, earning himself the nickname Young Randy Johnson. However, something else caught his attention more than baseball, and that was basketball. It was like love at first sight. All he needed was one game to get him hooked. Harden started playing organized basketball at the age of 10, playing for the neighborhood parks and recreation teams. He was so in love with the sport that Harden carried a basketball wherever he went like it was his job. He never said no to a game and had a hoop installed on the garage door so that he could practice day and night. He was devoted to basketball that he would go to school as early as possible so that he could practice before his morning classes. However, despite his devotion to basketball, he never let it get in the way of his academics and still maintained stellar grades all year round. School and basketball kept young Harden occupied all year long. Before we move on, did you know that Monjo was never a sports fan? She never liked basketball or sports in general, but she knew she needed to keep her kids busy, so she put aside her dislike of sports and became her boy's biggest fan. She would take her kids to practice every day after school and pick them once practice was over. Monjo Willis surely deserves an award for her devotion to her kids. According to Harden, he and his brother were so busy they never had any time to hang out or chill with the other neighborhood kids. To further keep her children from the streets, she sent them away to schools that were not in the neighborhood. Keely was sent to a grade school in the San Fernando Valley, while Harden ended up at the Orticia High School in Lakewood. While in high school, Harden made his mom wake him up really early just so he could get some hoops in before heading out. One thing Harden didn't lack as a boy was self-confidence. That he once wrote a note to his mother in high school saying, "Could you wake up at 7 o'clock? And could you leave me a couple of dollars? James Harden, P.S. Keep this paper. I'ma be a star." Such a level of self-confidence isn't easy to come by these days. You can imagine the smile Harden's mother had on when she woke up to his note. Harden did keep his word and is currently one of the best players in the league, and his mother still has that paper till today. One of the reasons why Harden became the star he is today is because of the high school he attended. As a young boy, his favorite basketball player was Jason Capono, so when he showed up to school on his first day and saw pictures of Capono in the school gym, he knew fate had brought him here. It turns out that our teacher had a powerful hoops program. which several big names have benefited from, including Capono, Tom Talbert, Tony Farmer, and the O'Bannon brothers. Harden got to join the ranks of some of the most prominent basketball players to ever pass through Artesia, and he did a pretty good job filling their shoes. As a sophomore, he posted an average of 13.2 points per game and led his team to a 28-5 record that season. In his junior year, however, his coach decided he was big enough to start making some significant contributions to the offense. But Harden didn't want to appear selfish and disagreed with his coach. When Monja caught wind of what was happening, he sternly warned Harden that he should do what his coach asked, or he'd have to deal with her. Harden did what most of us would do. He complied with his coach's wishes. That season, he averaged nearly 20 points per game and led his team to a 33-1 record. He became a regular 20-point scorer and led his school to the championship title twice in a row, despite when his coach, who was more of a father figure to young Harden, was replaced by Lauren Glover. Harden also helped Renardo Sidney, who was a senior at the time, and Malik Story, a junior at the time, become stars. As a high school senior, a lot of eyes were already on him, and some scouts were already comparing him to NBA players because of how high his basketball IQ was. When the time to choose colleges came, Harden settled for Arizona, mainly because his mother was moving to Phoenix to manage the house her mother left for her. The cherry on the cake was that Para, his former coach, was an assistant coach at Arizona State too. It turns out that the Arizona State team was a disaster. They were practically labeled the weakest team in the Pac-10, but Harden came in and said, "Not on my watch." Taking command of the team from the shooting guard position, Harden led his team to a 9-9 conference record while averaging 7.8 points and 2.1 steals per game. His team narrowly missed the NCAA tournament, but they did get into the NIT. Meanwhile, James was named first team All-Pac-10 and a member of the conference All-Star team. Despite all the accolades he earned himself, people couldn't stop commenting on how young he was, and his baby face wasn't helping matters too. Thus the beard was born. By sophomore year, Harden was nothing short of a legend in his school. So much so that students started wearing t-shirts with his face printed on them and the slogan, "Die Harden Fan." That season, he finished with a 20.1 average and was voted Pac-10 Player of the Year after boosting his scoring average with a 40-point game during the season. In 2009, James Harden declared for the NBA draft and was selected by the Oklahoma City Thunder as the third overall pick, and as they say, the rest is history. In 2009, James Harden declared for the NBA draft and was selected by the Oklahoma City Thunder as the third overall pick, and as they say, the rest is history. Harden has established himself as a prolific scorer and a solid defender, making him one of the most complete and versatile NBA players. This is the story of how a young boy took his destiny into his own hands and shaped it the way he wanted it to be with so much courage and determination. And with that, we've come to the end of our video today. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. See you next time.